Thank you for the introduction. I never believe the word people say in this introduction, so you can continue to say whatever you want. It's okay. As you know, the Weizmann Institute of Science is a place where we do basic science. And there is always this idea that basic science can be really far away from application, or it is really just curiosity, and it doesn't lead to any application, unless maybe one day someone thinks by chance that it can be useful. However, as you all know, the history of the Weizmann Institute, which is no more than 65 years, shows you that basic science is in fact another way to get new knowledge and to use that knowledge to move into applications. The way we work is that we allow scientists indeed to follow their own curiosity, and I do think this is very important, to follow really their dream. And the role of management, people like me, is to try to listen to what the scientists want to do, what their dreams are all about, and to try to create around the scientists and to follow so they can follow their dreams, a structure, a platform that would allow them to work even better, faster, to achieve more of their own dream so that we can actually move faster toward results. Now, in the field of cancer, as you have heard, the Institute has been working on it for the last 50 years, basically. And today, among the 250 researchers or research groups that we have at the Weizmann Institute, about 60 of them actually work on issues related directly or indirectly to cancer research. There's no other field at the Weizmann Institute which is tackled by so many research groups, each of one always following their own dreams, but always trying to focus on that very, very specific disease. And this is why we have decided to take a very bold step and to try to create a platform which I think, as you'll see in a minute, is quite a unique one, which is based on what you have heard, or at least on part of what you have heard, because there's much more to hear about it, of course. As I said, more than 60 groups at the Institute are doing research on cancer research. But we tried here to propose something which we believe will make major differences in the field. And we want to use something which is, of course, very unique to the Weizmann Institute. And it's the fact that we have a basic multidisciplinary science platform. As you know, what we are very good at is to integrate really all the different fields of science together and make them working together. By the way, many people ask us, how do we do that? And the true answer is we do nothing, actually. It just happens, and we let it happen. And for many institutions when I travel the world and I see other institutions, I see barriers. We have no barriers. It's not that we do something very specific. We just do not allow barrier to be created. And that's what allows us to really create, I would say, symbiosis between the very four basic stones of what science is today, which is mathematics and computer science, physics, chemistry, and biology. And it's not by mistake that the first Professor Etan Damani is a physicist working in cancer research. We also have mathematicians and computer scientists and chemists, and everyone in different faculties would be busy in that type of work. And so what we are very good at is to taking all these fields together, whatever is in between, and to put them together and make them working, and to try to harness basic science to understand and fight cancer. And by the way, understand here, and understanding is a very, very important word. And I'll show you why it is important. There's always a dream that one can cure disease by just fighting it. That's, of course, the brute force. I think, in a way, this is a bit of the history of cancer, and we've seen some of the pictures that were presented by the very first speakers, quite rude and brutal pictures. I think it's time, not only now, but for the last 10 years, but certainly for the future, to get into understanding and to really try to see what are the details. It is complex, no doubt. It's not an easy task. It's not going to be a simple picture. What is emerging is a very, very complex one. But if you want to tackle complex issues, you first need to understand and then fight cancer, in that order. And what we are planning to do is to establish a platform which will allow the scientists of the Weizmann Institute to understand and fight cancer by harnessing basic science. Now, as I said, we have a long history of doing cancer research at the Institute, and in a way, there's nothing new. The people are there, they're doing their work. And I'm showing you that history because it shows that through basic research, we have been quite effective in delivering a lot of new possibilities, including actually drugs that are on the market, that are curing some subsets, as we have heard, of cancers. But for many years, under the leadership of the Morris Institute for Cancer Research, which is an institute that has been established, what is it now, maybe more than 20 years ago, something like this, at the Institute, we have done a lot of work, provide a lot of new knowledge, and that knowledge has been used on, I would dare to say, on the bedside, on the clinical side, There's more which is already today existing at the Institute in terms of knowledge that we can use, but you can see that we have gone quite a long way over the years. And so we have a record, or we can prove that we can make a difference, even in the stage that we are today. But what I'm proposing now today is to make a major step forward so that we can make an even bigger difference, so that we can provide faster, I would say, cure by truly understanding what cancer is all about. Now, how do we do that? I mean, what does it mean when I say, how do we harness basic science to fight cancer? And how do we do it? Well, I'll make it very, very simple for you. In fact, if you look at the way it's being done, or it has been done in the past, it worked like this. You had a patient, and the patient has cancer and go to a clinician, a doctor. And the clinician makes a diagnostics. He says, you have that cancer. And that's usually a name in a catalog of diseases. And then the goal of the clinician always has to be to try to cure the disease. And that's very important, not to cure the patient, but to cure the disease. Because for clinician, there's no patient. I'm not making it, I'm making it very, very simple. But first of all, there's a disease that needs to be cured. And then, of course, the clinician would try to think about best possible cancer therapies among the different drugs existing, chemotherapies, whatever you know, whatever exists will be used according to the case and what is known. And the patient will go into the procedures or the therapy, into treatment. And of course, at that point, then there will be a question, are you cured or not? If you're cured, usually you have a big smile on your face, at least for some time. For some, actually, for a very long time, and that's really amazing. For some, only for a short time. If you're not cured, you get a problem. Now, what happens usually is you go back to the doctor. You go back to the doctor, to the clinicians, and their clinicians will divide a new cancer therapy, and then you ask again if you're cured, and if it's not, you go again, and until you can't do it anymore because the cancer has basically taken over you, or yes, and it works. But that has been basically a trial and error loop, if you want, to the clinicians, which, using the present knowledge, that's really the best they could do. Given the understanding of cancer, clinicians could only use what exists and trial and error to make the best possible guess of what one could use for a given cancer in order to cure it. What we propose to do is to create a new loop, a loop which goes much further and go through basic research in order to tackle the complexity of cancer, because by no means it's going to be an easy issue, and by all means it is a complex issue. And then go back to the clinician. Not just trial and error, but actually use the fact that people are sick, in the good sense of term, use what the disease is, try to understand it, and then bring back to the clinic this understanding so that it can be used in a much better way, and not only through trial and error in order to go again to a new therapy, but really upgrade that loop, if you want, one step at a time. So the question is, how do we do that? Well, what is needed is to allow the scientists to work on systems that are as close as possible to human tissues, or even to human being. You have heard from all the patients here, to all the speakers, sorry, that cancer, if you put into a pretty dish, in a dish in the lab, you can cure it. I mean, we can cure thousands of different cancers in the lab. Once you go to the patient, once you go to the true environment, it is becoming a completely different story. And so if you really want to understand what cancer is all about, we have to do it on something which is as close as possible to human tissues. We have to work in the real environment, not just in the sterile environment of a lab, but really very, very close to what the reality is all about. Now, as you know, one of the major tools that biologists have used in order to do research on cancer has been mouse. Mice have been of tremendous help to produce new ideas and new drugs and new therapies, and they've saved millions of people from these diseases. But there's a limit to it, because a mouse is not a human being, and what we can do in a mouse, usually exactly the same thing doesn't work on a human being. And there are some numbers that describe how easy it is to go from a mouse to a human being, but it's not really the same platform. I think everyone understands. On the other hand, as I said, we can use these animals and really make a lot of statistics and try to use at best into laboratories that we call preclinical laboratories, so that we can really study what it is and understand at least the mechanism of what is happening. But the truth is, the best would be to go back to the patient and to use a human tumor, a real one which has been taken out from the patient, at least from biopsy, and to try that human tumor and to create a tumor bank, and then to merge the cancer laboratory or the mouse and the tumor bank into one single mouse, which we call the avatar mouse. And the avatar mouse is a mouse where we have implanted basically a human tumor in its body, in a body of a mouse, so that within an animal model, we can actually study a human being, or I would say the tumor part of a human being, and be as close as possible to the reality of what is happening in the real life, and not study that on a mouse, but study that on humanized mouse, those who have been transformed in a way that they become avatar mouse and be as close as possible to human being. Now, we would love to do that, of course, only on human tumor, but as you know, luckily, we cannot do experiment on human being. So we are bound to do this experiment on a system which is as close as possible. And what we propose, the first step we propose, or the first, I would say, idea we propose, is not to continue to do experiment on a mouse, and we cannot do it on a human tumor, but to try to merge these together and to create a system, or the avatar mouse, where we can do scientific research on a new model which is very, very close to the real one. And to do that, what we need to do is to create two new units at the Weizmann Institute. One of them is an advanced preclinical cancer laboratory, where we could actually, I would say, grow humanized mouse. And the other one is a tumor bank, where we would have access to real tumor that are taken by biopsy from human beings, stored at the Weizmann Institute, merged together with the mouse, with mice, and study for the scientific research for anyone or any researchers at the Weizmann Institute who is studying cancer. And that, of course, would be a completely new paradigm, a shift in what we've been doing for more than 40 years, and moving forward into, as you have heard, an environment, which is the environment in which we have to study cancer, and not the previous one. And I think that's the very first step. It is a major investment in terms of infrastructure, but one we have to do if, as you've heard from these lectures, we want to move into this new environment. So this is one step. It's a double step, a tumor bank, an advanced preclinical cancer laboratory, which we merged together, built on the ground of the Weizmann Institute, and open basically to all scientists of the Weizmann Institute for use, whatever direction, whatever cancer, whatever type of thinking they have, and they would like to use such a model. Now, the second thing which is needed is to really understand the complexity of cancers. And what you have heard among all the speakers is these issues that, in fact, not only every cancer is different, but within a single cancer, it is also not the same cells. And each of these cells can be different. And so what we need to do is to develop tools that allow us to analyze the complexity of each cell within a single cancer. I mean, you need to realize the complexity of what I'm talking about. It is not about just trying to understand the differences between cancers of different individuals. It is really trying to go into each cell within a single tumor of a single individual. Now, I know this is mind-boggling in terms of numbers, but in fact, technologies exist today that would allow to do that and really provide images, as you've heard from Michael Ne'eman, and analysis and genomics analysis of every single cell within every single tumor of every single individual. If you have heard the name of personalized medicine, this is clearly the ultimate of personalized medicine. And to do that, we have to set up a live cell imaging and sorting facility. These are technologies that exist. Again, providing access to all scientists at the Weizmann Institute doing cancer research in any direction they want, in any type of cancer, so they can do this live cell imaging and sorting facility. And that, we believe, will really personalize medicine, personalize cancer, and allow us to develop actually new targets for new drugs. Because at the end of the day, this, of course, is the goal. But in order to do that, we need to understand which cells are involved, what are the conditions, what are the numbers behind these cells, as you have heard, and to do that in a cell-by-cell and way. And that, of course, is a major facility. This is the third one we would like to develop at the Weizmann Institute, a live cell imaging and sorting facility. Again, a core facility open to all scientists of the Weizmann Institute. So the last thing that is really needed, once you have all these tools, is to make sense of cancer. Because it's one thing to provide all the data, and I promise you that if we do that, we will get huge amount of data. It's going to produce an incredible number of data, but that's an area where we know how to deal with large numbers and large quantity of numbers. And because it is a dynamic, complex, multi-scale system, the only way we can understand it is by integrating various disciplines, theories, and experiments. As you know, when you have a lot of numbers, you better call people specialists in mathematics and computer science. Physicists have their own way to analyze this. And if you want to sort things, you better have a chemist involved in this. Cancer is ultimately into the biology and the biochemistry field, so everyone has to be involved in this. And the platform we're proposing is really doing that. The platform is, the most important part of it is, as I said, the fact that 25% of the research of the Weizmann Institute of Science is today already dedicated to cancer. About 60 different research groups in many different departments and faculties. We have already 2 major facilities that allow us to go to the next step. One is the Laurie Locke Preclinical Research Facility, and the second one is the recently established Nancy and Stephen Graham Israel National Center for Personalized Medicine. This is the cornerstone. From that point, we need now to create the next step. And the next step is the creation, as I said, of 3 facilities. An advanced preclinical cancer laboratory, that's for the avatar mouse. That's the one where we can grow, I would say, create almost these animals so that they would be as close as possible to human being. We have to develop a tumor bank, which is a human one, where we can store tumor and use them for the advanced preclinical cancer laboratory. And then a facility which is live cell imaging and sorting facility where we can study cell by cell for single individual, for single cell. If we have these facilities, we need to create 3 institutes that will provide new insight in cancer, an institute for prevention, an institute for diagnostic, an institute for therapy. And you've heard that there's no opposition here. It all works together because whatever we learn and whatever we start to understand from cancer will have an impact in prevention or diagnostic or therapy or perhaps in 3 of them. And that data, that knowledge must be going into these 3 different directions without trying to understand maybe at the very beginning where it will lead us. And that's, of course, the golden era of basic science. Once you understand, once you get data, not always you know what it will be useful for, but if you can create an institute which will direct these things toward prevention, diagnostic, or therapy, and then ultimately moving all that information into clinical collaboration, then I believe we have a chance to make a major difference within this framework using the intellectual power, integrated intellectual power we have at the Institute, and given the fact that we have a long history of doing cancer research. So what are we proposing? We're proposing to establish at the Weizmann Institute a new center, which we call the Integrated Cancer Center, ICC, or physicists like me, IC square. The integrated means physics, mathematics, computer science, chemistry, biology, all together, not just separated. And that's for us, believe me, very easy. This is the really easy part to do for us. By the way, a very complicated step for many other institutions, but very easy for us. Goal is to harness basic science to fight cancer. What do we want to create? We want to create an advanced preclinical cancer laboratory. We want to create a tumor bank. We want to create a live cell imaging and sorting facility. And then we need 3 institutes, which are basically endowment fund that will support the research, which is Institute for Cancer Prevention Research, an Institute for Cancer Diagnosis Research, and an Institute for Cancer Therapy Research, and link all that together with a clinical collaboration fund, which will push all this knowledge back to the clinician, where at the end, everything needs to happen. This is the platform we're proposing. It's a very open one. As usual, it doesn't direct the research of every single scientist or anyone at the Institute into a specific direction. We never believe in doing that. We always believe that we have to respect what the scientists themselves want to do. As you know, major discoveries never happen in the lab. They always happen in the brain of the scientist. And that structure respect that philosophy. It's up to the scientists to decide what part of the platform they want to use. It is not trying to direct research in a given direction, but it offers unique facility so that the people at the Weizmann Institute can use them and move much faster. Now, if you think that this is a new idea, then in fact, you don't know, or I don't even know what I'm talking about. I found in the archive of the Weizmann Institute a very interesting letter. This is a letter in Hebrew, and I'm not going to give you a lecture in Hebrew and teaching you Hebrew, but it's a letter from Ben-Gurion from 1959. That's actually the year I was born. Very interesting. And it's written to Professor Isaac Birnblum, you may have heard of him, who was the very, very first cancer researchers in Israel and at the Weizmann Institute. He was also the head of the Department of Experimental Biology and was really doing cancer research, also proposed this 2-step theory which is today transformed in multi-step theory. Now, I know you don't understand Hebrew, so here's a translation. It says, letter from the Prime Minister, Dear Professor Bernblum at the Weizmann Institute, I owe you a double thank you for your book, that every person has a great interest in it. None of us is guaranteed against danger of cancer. No less, for the few words, you have had it in your own handwriting. I have no idea what you say. But you must know that all over Russia, a rumor has spread, not true yet, unfortunately, we're talking 1959, that a cure for cancer was found in Israel. Is there any hope that that piece of information becomes a reality? Kind regards. Well, we are now about 55 years later. I think it's time to make that dream becoming a reality. Thank you very much.